If you have the textbook and want to join me on page 164, we will have a review of this chapter. I've actually worked through the whole chapter. I did not intend to do that when I started, but as we went through it, I thought, why not? We're halfway through, so let's do the review. This is on page 164 if you have the textbook. The vocabulary review says to draw a line to match the term to its definition. So this is not even number 1. A standard form of a linear equation. That is a pattern. The standard form of a linear equation is ax plus by equals c. The y-intercept is the y-coordinate of the point where a line crosses the x-axis. Now, I'm not going to write all these down. If you have the textbook, you can just review them as we go. Slope-intercept form. That's another pattern. That is y equals mx plus b, baby b, where m is the slope of the line and baby b is the y-intercept. This is slope-intercept form. The reason I'm writing these is because we're going to use them in just a minute. Point slope form is this form, where y minus y1 equals mx minus x1. That is point slope. The coefficient is a number that is multiplied by a variable. And slope is the ratio of rise to run. So let's go ahead and put that in here also. You can write it as rise over run. You can also write it in formula as y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. So this is just a good review of all the things we've talked about in the last few video clips. All right, here's the skill review. It says to read each problem and complete the task. And again, I'm on page 164. Number 1. A line has a slope of 4 and passes through the point -4, 6. What is the equation of this line in point slope form? So it's telling me which pattern to use. And following the pattern that I've taught you, let me go ahead and use that same thing. This is what we want. And then under the T line, we put what we have. Well, I know that slope is 4. I know that x sub 1 is -4. And then on this side, I know that y sub 1 is 6. So I have y minus 6. Distribute the 4, so you get 4x. And then 4 times, this is going to be a positive 4. So 4 times positive 4 is positive 16. And that should be the equation that we need. I went just a little too far on my T-chart. But that is the answer, and that corresponds to option D. Y minus 6 equals 4x plus 16. So if you have the answer choices, you would want to choose D on that one. Okay, number 2. Which equation of the line, what is the equation of the line written in standard form? So they give me slope-intercept, Really, they don't, because they don't give me a y. But let's go ahead and use that form. We want standard. So let's put that up here at the top. That's standard. That's what we want. This is what we have. 3y equals 4x plus 2. So what we want is on top. What we have is on the bottom. Let's see where we are. The b, big B, is fine. You have a coefficient, the 3, and then you have the y. You even have the plus sign because that 3 is positive. Then on the other side, you have a constant 2. That's this one. So I need to move that 4x over. I'll minus it here and minus it here. Cancel it here. And then I have all the pieces of the puzzle in place. I just need to write it in a form that's legible. And if you don't want to use this method, that's fine. You may not need the T-chart. I totally understand that. It's just if you are having trouble with this, that's a good way to organize it. So there is the standard equation. It's been standardized. And I'm liking none of these. Why am I not liking any of these? We need a negative 4x. Okay, what am I missing here? Let me go to the answer key because I'm clearly missing something. This is page 164, option A, 4x minus 3y. Oh, duh. A up here has to be what? Can't be a 0, and it has to be positive. You can't lead off with a negative. So I need to get rid of that negative sign. And to do that, it's not a hard process. You just have to remember what to do. We're going to multiply the whole equation by -1, which means you're going to do both sides. Let's do it that way, by -1. So -1 times -4 is positive 4x. -1 times positive 3 is negative 3y. And then 2 times -1 is -2. So basically, multiplying by -1 just reverses all the signs. And that gives you the positive a value that we need. And this does correspond to answer A. And it probably won't surprise you that I forgot to do that all the time in school. I wanted just to leave that negative 4x there. But in standard form, it needs to be a positive. So A is indeed the answer. Let me double check. Yes, A is the answer. Okay, number 3, we don't need the graph, so let me take that away. Sorry about that. I'm getting tired. All the videos up to this point I have done in one day, so I'm wearing down just a little bit. Number 3, a line has a slope of -3 and passes through 0.00. So I have point slope. What is the equation of the line in slope-intercept form? Okay, so let's see what we can do with this one. I could do point slope because I have that, but they want slope-intercept. So they want y equals mx plus b. Well, we have y. That's 0. We have -3. That's slope. We have x. And look what we're about to find. Baby B. We need to know the y-intercept. We don't know where it intercepts the y-axis. So let's do the math. We have 0. This would be 0 plus b. So if you move the 0, you are left with b equals 0. So baby b is actually 0. Remember, that's the y-coordinate of the point. So it actually does cross at the origin. That's where it intersects the y-axis. Now we still need to write our form in slope-intercept form. And let me do that again. I think that's the best way to illustrate it. Again, we want y equals mx plus b. Okay, so y, slope is -3, x plus, this time we know baby b, it's 0. So the formula, the equation that we want is y equals -3x. And that corresponds to option D. Number 4. Write the equation of the line through 0, 2, and 1, 4 in slope-intercept form. So let's do, I think I'm going to graph this one, just also for practice graphing. So we know that it passes through 0, 2, and we know that it passes through 1, 4, and they tell me that they want this in slope-intercept form. So let me go ahead and set up my pattern, and we'll see what all we need to have here. Slope-intercept is y equals mx plus b. So we don't know slope and we don't know baby b, but we're going to have to figure those out in order to do this. So the first thing I'm going to do is just look at a graph. I always like to see a graph if I can. If it's a lot of trouble, I don't do it, but in this case, we can go ahead and graph it. So 0, 2, that means no movement on the x-axis, but up to 2 on the y. So there's the y-intercept. There's baby b. Baby b is +2. So you see why graphing sometimes helps. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in for the value of b. And then the other point is over 1 up 4. So over 1 up 4, and we are going to draw the function, the line through those points. This is a positive slope. I don't know what the slope is yet, but I do know it's positive. And I do know I can't draw a straight line. It's time for another one of those cookies. So here is 1, 4. Here is 0, 2. And here is the linear function. We also got baby b out of there. So slope is rise over run. I could estimate it. Actually, let's go ahead and estimate it. We're going to do the formula because we need to. But let's see what we think it's going to be. So it rises 2 and it runs 1. And there's the only piece of the stair that I can see. But I can tell you that we're going upstairs. But the slope, if you just use rise over run, it rises 2. Because each of these boxes is worth a unit. And it runs 1 unit. So I think the slope is 2. But let's put it through the formula because that's what they want us to do and see what we get. So over here, I will make this larger. Just 1 second. Let's run that slope formula and see what we get. So m equals y sub 2 minus y sub 1. See, I didn't write it down and I messed up. That was not planned. Oh, it's because I have two y sub 2's. Goodness. This is y1. Sorry. But I am going to follow my own advice and write the formula. It will save you mistakes. So y2 is 4. y1 is 2. x2 is 1 and x1 is 0. So 2 over 1 is 2. So that confirms what I believed to be the case. And so my slope that I just found is 2 times any x value, and that is set equal to y. Slope intercept, is that what they wanted? It is. So this is done. Once you find the pieces of the puzzle, you have the formula that you need. So y equals 2x plus 2. And that's the graph of this equation. That's what if you wanted to label that line, that's what we would call it. This is the function part. This is the part that's coming up in the course that's coming. Remember, we're still in the prerequisite part of the course that's coming. Alrighty, number 5. Let me just take this away, and I'll put it right here. It says to write the equation of the line through negative 4, 3, and negative 1, negative 1, in point slope form. So let's set up the pattern that we want to use. That's point slope. And point slope is what we want. So that goes above the line. And here's what we have. Either one of those points would help me, but I don't know slope. So I'm going to have to find slope. And I'm going to do that with 2 points, x1, y1, x2, y2, and then my formula. So slope is rise over run. So slope is going to be y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. So we have a negative 4 on top and a positive 3 on the bottom. So my slope is negative 4/3. Negative 4/3. And then we need to pick one of our points. I'll just use the negative 1, negative 1. It doesn't matter which one you use. And then over here we have y minus negative 1. So I need to do a little bit of simplifying. I need to distribute that 4/3 and get it all neatened up a little bit. So this becomes y plus 1. This becomes negative 4/3 x minus 4/3. And I'm not sure if they want us to go ahead and simplify that situation. Let me look at the answer and see what they want us to do. Oh, they used the first point. Okay, this is fine. They don't want us to simplify. So this is the final result. Now, if you use the other point, they used the -4, 3 and got a different answer. Let me go ahead and do it that way too, just because you may have chosen that other point. In other words, I used this point to do my math, but let's look at it if you use the other point. So it is still going to be the same pattern that we want to use. And that is point slope form. So oh, sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself. Set your pattern up. And then use that other point. We're going to use -4, 3 this time. So y would be y minus 3. Slope is still -4/3 because that came from both of those points. And then x minus -4. So we have nothing on this side to simplify. But here we have -4/3 x minus 16/3. So if you chose to use that point, you would get this version of the equation. Just depends on which of those points you want to use. And it doesn't matter. You can use either point and get an equation that will fit this pattern. But depending on the equation, the point that you choose, your values will look a little different. Your slope won't. Slope has to be the same in both cases. So the equation that they give as an answer is y minus 3 equals -4/3 x minus 16/3. So they used this one. Sorry about that. I should look at the answer key instead of just going out on my own. But I've never been one to look at the directions very much. Okay, number 6 is on page 165. And it gives us, I'm not even going to do this one because it's a graph and it just says to pick out some points. Actually, we can do it. I'm just going to put it right down here. And I'm going to do it by using a table of values. Now, if you don't have the textbook, this is not going to make much sense. But for those of you who do, let's just pick out some points. X and Y. I see at when X is 0.5, Y is 10. When X is 1.5, Y is 20. When X is 2.5, Y is, you want to guess, 30. When X is 3.5, Y is 40. And when X is 4.5, Y is 50. And just as way of review, based on this graph, especially for those of you who can't see the graph, the dependent variable is cost, and the independent variable is hours. And it doesn't tell us the story that goes with this, but again, this is the independent. So the cost depends on the hours somehow. We just don't know what the storyline is. Okay, let's take a look at number 1 at the bottom there. I don't know if I need the graph or not, so I'll leave it alone. This is 1 under skills practice, and this is on page 165. Emily's commission at a t-shirt shop depends on how many t-shirts she sells each day. She earns $10 for the first t-shirt she sells and $2 for each t-shirt after that. The line that represents her commission has a slope of 2 and passes through 518. So they tell me that the slope is positive 2. It passes through point 518. What is the equation of the line? Use the equation to find out how much Emily earns in commission for selling 20 t-shirts. So the first thing we need to do is, I don't think I'm going to graph this one because that 18 is pretty big. So let me just take that out. The first thing we need to do is come up with an equation. And I have a point and I have slope. So that's the pattern I'm going to use, the point slope formula. And that is y minus y1 mx minus x1. So I will say that y minus y1 goes on this side. Slope times x minus x1 on this side. I need to distribute my 2x minus 10. And you can actually stop right there. You can go on to slope-intercept form if you want to. But actually, let me do that. Let's go ahead and move it to slope-intercept form. So at this line, you have point slope. You can solve it right there. No problem. But if you want to, you can go ahead and put it in slope-intercept form, where you have this equation. It's a little bit simpler to solve, but it truly doesn't matter because they're two versions of the same thing. Remember, it's just which outfit you're wearing. And we want to let x be, this is where I would like to see your graph. Let me just sketch. I'm not going to do a graph, but let's just label our dependent and independent variables. Because remember, this is the x line and this is y. Now, it says that her t-shirt commission depends on the number of shirts she sells. So this will be shirts sold. And depending on that is dollars earned. So they're saying that 20 shirts were sold. That's an X value. So when X is 20, what happens is what we're looking for. So Y equals 2 times 20 plus 8. So Y equals 40 plus 8, or her dollars earned is $48. So this question told us to do two things. It said to write an equation of the line. So we could give this answer right there, or we could give the simplified answer. It doesn't matter. Either of those would be equations. And then use the equation to find out how much she earns at 20 shirts. So Y in this case would be $48. She earns $48 for selling 20 shirts. Okay. And let me just double check. Yes. And they wanted slope-intercept form. They did go ahead and simplify it. but I would argue that either of those is an acceptable answer. All right, number 2. A slide is planned for a playground. When represented on a graph, the slide begins at 5, 4 and ends at 0, 0. I'm definitely going to graph this one. If you ever get a job building slides, you're going to have to know how to do this. So you never know. All right, so let's do a graph. I'm gonna offset it just a hair, but I do need to at least stay on a line. And this time, I'm just going to look at that one quadrant where I go over 5 and up 4. Here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and up 4. So here is the start of the slide. And it ends at 0, 0. So here's the bottom of the slide. Now this particular line does not have arrows on the end because it has a definite start and stop point. Here's where it starts. So I'm assuming that there is a ladder or something here that the kids climb up to get to the top of the slide. So maybe I've not been on a slide in so long, I can't even remember how you get on there. But it has to be a ladder or something. So here's the ladder, you climb up, and then you slide down. Okay. So that's the gist of what we're talking about. What is the slope? Write the equation of the line in slope-intercept form. Okay, so let's use our formula to calculate the slope. Let's do the formula and then I'll show you on the graph. So M equals, say it with me, y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. And let's put some points in. That green is hard to see, isn't it? So that's still hard to see. Let me just get a different color. Let's do this darker. So there's x1, y1, x2, y2. And let's carry that formula on over another line. So 0 minus 4 and 0 minus 5 equals negative 4 over 5. Negative 4 over negative 5, excuse me. So the slope is 4/5. So let's see if that holds true. This says you rise 4 and you run 5. So let's see what we've got here. I'm going to do this really darkly and then I'll take it away. You rise 4. That's true. And you run 5. That's true. Rise 4, run 5. Slope is 4 over 5. So that first question's answered. What is the slope? And then it says to write the equation of the line in slope-intercept form. So they're giving me a specific pattern that they want me to use. That's way too dark. Put your pattern up there on the top, slope-intercept. Gotta know your patterns. We just found slope, y. Now we need baby B, and that's where graphing it is going to help me. Where does it touch the y-axis? It's that coordinate right there. That's baby B. So 0 is baby B, which means the equation in slope-intercept form is 4/5 x. So 2 questions to answer here. First of all, what is slope? Slope is 4/5. And then the equation in slope-intercept form is this one. Baby B was 0, so baby B drops out. Catch to this one is that you have to get this right to get this right. So I like to see a graph. It just confirms what I'm doing. I like pictures, especially in geometry. Okay, this next one, it says the graph shows the cost to rent a boat at a marina. Find the equation of the line, then find the cost of renting a boat for 8 hours. Now, if you are looking at the textbook, you see a graph. If you're not looking at the textbook, you don't see the graph. So rather than draw the graph, I'm just going to pull some points off of this graph that we see. So I'm asking you to trust me, if you don't have a textbook, that these points are in fact what I'm seeing. So let's draw a table of values. The independent variable, which is also known as x, is the number of hours that we're going to rent a boat. The dependent variable, which is y, is the total cost of renting a boat. So for 1 hour, it costs how much? If you have a textbook, go ahead and get this number. It's 20. It's $20 an hour. Now be careful. The price is going to change. Actually, no. What am I telling you? From 10 to, yeah, that's right. Sorry. At 2 hours, it's not 40. It's only $30. At 3 hours, it is $40. At 4 hours, it is $50. So we have a pattern going here. It's not an easy pattern to identify, because the first hour costs more, but as you rent the subsequent hours, the rate is not as expensive. So it's a little bit, it kind of bends your brain a little bit if you think about it in those terms. But let me just double check my points. 1 is 20, 2 is 30, 3 is 40, 4 is 50. I could even go ahead and put 5 on there. Let me do that because we got to go to 8 hours. So let's just go ahead and add a little bit more right down here. Because the graph is going to help me so far, and then it won't, at least not directly. Well, that didn't work out, did it? It's close enough. All right, so at 5 hours, we're all the way up to 60. And then we don't see hours 6, 7, or 8. That's what we have to figure out. For 8 hours, how much will it cost? Now, you could just let the pattern continue, but that's not what they want. They want us to find the equation of the line. So to do that, I don't have slope, but I have points galore. So the first thing I'm going to do is find my slope. And say it with me. M equals y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. And so we need to pick some points. I always just went with the lowest 2 points I could find because usually they're going to be easier numbers to work with. But you can go with any 2 points you want. It doesn't matter. So I'm going to let this be x1 and this be x2. This be y1 and this be y2. So I have 30 minus 20, the change in y, over 2 minus 1, the change in x, and that's going to be 10 over 1, or 10. So the slope, m, is 10. And then I'm just going to pick yet another point. Again, it doesn't matter. You could use the first one or whichever one, but I'm going to just pick that one. And I'm going to go with a point slope pattern because we just found slope and we definitely have points galore. So y minus y1, x minus x1, and let's start plugging in what we know. We know slope is 10, and x in this purple is 4. We know that y in the purple is 50. So y minus 50 is 10x minus 40. You can use this equation, and I think this time I'm going to, instead of going ahead, unless it said, it didn't say we had to do slope intercept. No, okay. So let's go ahead and just use this formula. When x is 8, they want to know at 8 hours how much it will cost. So we'll plug that in. We have y minus 50 equals 10 times 8 minus 40. So y minus 50 is 80 minus 40. Y minus 50 is 40. And move the 50 over. So it will cost us $90 to rent the boat for that time. So back here at 8, I can plug in the 90. We can even go and plug in the rest of those values if we just see the pattern. But the answer to this question is twofold. It wants a formula, an equation, and right here it is. Actually, no. Right here it is. And then when x is 8, excuse me, I'm losing my voice, y is 90. So what that says is it will cost $90. That's the dependent. It depends on how many hours you rent for 8 hours. Okay? It's a good question. It's not easy, though. All right, one more, and I'm out of paper. We're ready to move into that functions course. I think you're going, if you're following me now, you will do fine in functions. Don't be afraid of it. We just have to build that brick wall a brick at a time. You can't throw all the bricks up there at once. You have to systematically build the wall. And if you do that, you'll have a wall that'll last you a lifetime. If you don't build it systematically, I'm not responsible. Okay, here we go. Number 4. This is the last question in this unit. A line on a graph represents a ramp that extends from the back of a moving truck to the ground. So I'm just going to go ahead and start setting up a picture of that situation. We do need a graph. And heaven forbid, but I'm going to try to draw here. So we have this, oh, actually I'm not. I'll draw in just a minute. I'm just going to set up a graph. The line has a slope of negative 1/2. So you drop 1, run 2, drop 1, run 2, drop 1, run 2. And passes through point 8, 0. The y-intercept represents the height of the back of the moving truck. Okay, the y-intercept is another way of saying what? Baby B. And we want to know how tall is the back of the moving truck. Now, what pattern do you know that involves baby B? Which one of those formulas has baby B in it? Well, it's the slope-intercept formula. It's y equals mx plus b. And we know slope. They already told us that. Okay. But we need to know a value for y. And they gave us one because they gave us a point. So we're going to say that y, let me not erase it, let's just use the 0. And they gave us that when y is 0, x is 8. So we are about to find baby B. Negative 1/2 times 8 is negative 4 plus b. And if you move 4 over to the constant side, you have 4 positive is baby B. So the y-intercept is going to be no x movement and up to 4. So now I'm ready to draw. No x movement, but up to 4. So here's the y-intercept. All right. That is the back of the truck. We know that the ramp passes through the x-intercept, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8, 0. We know that it passes here. They told us that it does. And I use that point to find baby B, which is going to be the 4 in that point. So the ramp looks something like this. Sorry, I erased it. Something like that. Now I get to draw. Y'all, I am not an artist.